Hi, this is Shirish Kulkarni, CEO and founder of STROTA Consultech, having been running this company for last 5 years, in fact, 6 years now. Today is the day that it has completed 6 years. So
Oh,
happy
wow.
to have you guys around. In this series that we have on HATKE, we have been talking to various leaderships, various individuals who have contributed differently in the business space, individuals who have started their own ventures, handed it over, then joined corporates, having a mixture of experiences at leadership positions in both sides, small and medium businesses and the larger part of businesses. We have a great pleasure to have Vibhas Joshi today with us. Great to have you, Vibhas, with us.
Thanks. Thanks, Shirish, for having me on this platform. Thank you.
Wonderful. So Vivas brings in around 40 years of huge amount of enriched experience on the table, and he has definitely served. He had his own IT venture. He has played major critical roles in larger organizations, and he's the one that I admire to be a leader, to be a mentor, to be a person to go for. And somebody who had been at the helm and deciding stepping down and being playing a individual contributor role. That is something that I remember, Vivas. So maybe you can quickly take us through your journey and enlighten us.
Sure, sure. Thanks, Shirish. So, I started my corporate journey in January 1981, 5th January 1981 to be precise.
Hmm.
That's the day I joined TCS. And when I had no clue about what it means to work in a corporate. I was fairly raw
Right.
from my post-graduation that I did in physics. And I entered TCS where I had no idea about programming and no idea of how to work in a corporate. My stay at TCS, laid the foundation really, of all my learning, I would say. So hugely grateful for that experience. And I learned programming. I started as a programmer. And as everyone progresses through the ladder, typical ladder, programmer to senior programmer to designer, whatever, to account managers, consultant, senior consultant, whatever. And a lot of roles. I had the pleasure of, or the experience of performing very different roles in TCS, experiencing very different cultures, different geographies in India as well as in the globe, like Venezuela. Who would have dreamt of visiting Venezuela? But I had a chance to visit Venezuela and experiencing that extremely enriching experiences. And then TCS I served for 14 years up to 1995. Then TCS was a very big company by then. And while I was doing fine and I was very happy there, it would be good to, get into a very small setup and learn how a company is set up.
Okay.
What it means to, run a company in totality, even if it is on a smaller scale.
True.
That's when I decided to join a very small setup, which was a startup started by some people who were running perfumes company globally, and they wanted a software kind of a captive to be set up in India. So one of my friends asked, are you interested? I said, okay, I'll do it. And I got interviewed and I got selected somehow. That was completely a different experience from TCS for me. And a very small company. I was the first employee. So started in a guest house, from the kitchen of the guest house. And then finding a premise for the company, doing all the government related, permissions. So I got the whole experience of, getting supplies for the office to closing the office, downing the shutters, recruiting people, to name it, but on a very small scale though. But even that very enriching, I would say. And so was there for 5 years and then joined Neelan Technologies, which was company founded by one of my ex-bosses in TCS, Mr. Singh, and worked with Neelan for 3.5 years. Had again a lot of enriching experiences with LC, mostly in South Africa, working with banking. Then a short stint at HSBC, and then 9 years at SAS, which is a leading business analytics company up to 2012. And I think that was a time when I did some reflection around just before that. And I thought, yeah, sure, I have learned a lot. I'm doing reasonably well. But I wanted to do something different. And my learning had kind of plateaued, around time in terms of self-learning. And so I said, if I want to continue to learn, I had to switch now to an individual contributor role. So, I decided to leave my corporate role as a leader of the R&D center. And then I joined Pragati Leadership in 2012. And have been there to date with Pragati. And what I have been doing there is learning how to, develop leaders through, facilitation, training programs, through coaching, mentoring, but more as an individual contributor. And that has been extremely enriching. And the step I took in 2012, I'm very happy that, it did meet my expectations, because sometimes the expectations can go wrong. You make some assumptions, go wrong. And it has been very, very rewarding for me so far. And I'm still continuing with Pragati. That's broadly my journey, corporate journey, I would say, not my personal life journey, but my professional journey.
It's amazing actually, seeing you travel. I think we have been associated for long, and uh, seeing you taking those decisions, do you find yourself having any scare as a leader when you switch either from, say, TCS down to a smaller company, or back from there to, say, New Zealand, or from that to, say, individual contributor? All these are different types of organizations. So I'm trying to come to tenets of, what is there required inside you
Right.
as a preparation. I'm always curious about it.
Very nice question, Shirish. And yeah, I mean, see, one always may have doubts when you are making a significant change, of any sort, be it your job or leadership or role change, complete role change. Yeah. And I think it should not be based on pure impulse. So I don't think I have listened to my only impulse. While the desire was there to do something different, I've always believed in doing some analysis and making sure that I won't repent the decision I take, and be prepared for the consequences of your decisions and own the consequences of your decisions. Like, let's say my startup experiment went wrong. I own the consequences. I cannot do the blame game here, right? But I have done analysis of why I'm making the change. If I knew why I'm making the change, and if that purpose is being served, I think then the change was right. For example, when I moved to startup, I wanted to get an experience of full company, running a full company. If I look back and say, did I get the experience? I did. And that made me confident that I know how to run a company. Okay? Perfect. Because if I run a small scale company also, while scalability and running large companies has its own nuances, it does prepare you with confidence inside that, yeah, I know how to run a company. Otherwise, I'll struggle. I know how to run a project. I know how to run a large project, but I don't know how to run a company. Now that gives me the confidence. Now that startup did not continue in India after 5 years. And it went back to Dubai, say, so in that sense, it was not a successful startup for me, but it was successful in the learning it provided and the purpose for which I had joined the startup, right? Did it make a lot of financial gains for me? No, but enough, sufficient. Yeah. So I think I have been analytical, I would say. There is always a doubt and a little fear in your mind when you're making a change. But I think when you make a change, you should be clear about why you are making the change. And have you thought through the consequences? And are you prepared for the consequences going, and if fails, what happens? Are you prepared? And I think one thing I have always checked is taken support from home front. I've always confirmed with my wife, are you okay with this change?
Okay.
Even when I was leaving SAS, I confirmed with my wife that, while it's a professional decision, this is what it means. Like now my financials are going to drop by probably 70 to 80%. And are we comfortable with it? Are you okay? So because it is important to have that support from home also, yeah, while these are professional. And I have got that. And I think that is also another thing I've always done. And it worked well for me so far.
Wonderful. I think it's whatever I have observed is your preparedness, your willingness, you always being analytical towards even yourself and the environment, uh, plus exactly knowing what you want, and then carving out that, and then making environment know. Maybe it comes as a surprise to others, but I found you absolutely at it.
I think it's a combination of preparation as well as luck. I think you need both. You also need luck because the opportunity has to be available when you want it. No,
Mhm.
that you cannot force an opportunity to arise in the environment. I think I think you need to be a little fortunate as well as you need to be prepared, both. And you may want to wait for the opportunity to come sometimes. So some patience is required. So for example, if I want to switch to a startup, I need to get an opportunity in a startup. Till that time, I have to dedicate myself to whatever is at hand, and not get frustrated. Many times I find people say, I left because I was completely frustrated. At least to me, I have never left because I was frustrated, because that's too late to leave something. My suggestion to people is leave while you're enjoying something, and not when you are frustrated. So out of frustration, when you leave, no, that's not the right reason to leave and do something else.
So,
Like TCS, I was super happy.
mm,
When I left, there was nothing to crib about. Same with SAS, 9 years at SAS, nothing to. I mean, some people, some people ask me, are you an idiot? You are head of a company. The company has great culture. You have a great role, decent amount of pay. Are you an idiot to leave this? Yeah, but there was that is another thing. It has worked for me, planning, thought process, but also opportunity, I would say, and little patience, and wait for the opportunity to come.
right.
It requires some luck also.
Right. I think it is definitely amount of risk planning that one takes
Yeah,
at a cost of wanting to learn something,
absolutely.
paying a cost for that, and eventually being sure that
Yeah,
I am there and hitting my target in my way.
absolutely. I mean, I've been reading a book by Subrato Bakchi,
Uh-huh.
the entrepreneur. And I find some of the things that he has talked about amazingly, interesting. One of the things he says is, I think the ability to have a postponed gratification is a critical thing for an entrepreneur. If you need immediate gratification of something and you are trying to start your own company, that's a terrible thing to do, because you may not get anything for a year. So postponed gratification, readiness for that is critical. So when I make a switch, you don't expect the results to be there immediately. And I'm letting go of something. If I'm not prepared for that, don't let go. If I say, oh my God, now I'm not earning enough as I used to and sing past glories, why did you leave in the first place? So one has to be very careful in what doors you are opening, what doors you are closing, and think through the consequences. Be prepared, like you mentioned, risk management, do risk analysis. What if it fails? Am I okay? And only then take the jump. Be prepared. Be prepared for the consequences.
Superb. One more dimension I would like to check on is, we always see us to be eager to add value. I mean, it is definitely one tenet that makes a smile come on the face, makes us to be satisfied.
Yes,
So in
yes.
your viewpoint, now we will mix both together. In corporate, it might be a different dimension for a leader, while for being at the helm of a smaller organization, it could be different types of value addition, and both from us to the ecosystem and back.
Yeah.
And maybe we can restrict it to organization first, and then larger ecosystem for later. But how does that value addition, because it will be a subjective way to look at, but how does that kind of quantify as a value addition as a term?
Right, right, right. So I would say value addition of a leader comes from both, people who hired you, and also people who are working for you,
Mm.
working with you, not for you necessarily, working with you, I would say. And I think both stakeholders above you and, at the next level, they need to see you adding value to what they do, I would say, and that is your value add. Because, like, for example, if I'm adding value to what my manager does, yeah, I'm adding value. If I add value to what my direct reports are doing, I add value. Your value addition is based on in the eyes of your stakeholders. Do they see you valuable? Very visible in the way they work with you. If are they wanting to have you in their platforms? Are they seeking your inputs? You know that you are adding value or not based on the interactions people seek with you. Yeah? If it is purely because of positional power, that doesn't tell you. It is the position, it is not you. So if I'm adding value, you can feel it based on how people work with you. And it depends on the type of organization, as you mentioned. The value add in a startup is right from buying groceries for your company to maybe with your customers and getting business for the customers, anything that it takes to make the company successful. Value in a large organization, you have to know what you are expected to do and deliver to the expectations of your key stakeholders. That's where your value addition comes. And I think you have to be prepared. So you cannot say, this is how I want to deliver value. You have to figure out what your stakeholders want as value. And you mentioned your organization, also the environment and the ecosystem. What is ecosystem wanting from you? So if I'm working in a software exporters type of company, am I adding value to overall, exporters, the software exporters as a community? You have ACAP, you have other organizations. Am I contributing to that? I'm participating there. I'm sharing some things, my experiences. I'm part of the community, right? So value add comes at different levels. Basically, stakeholders, know your stakeholders and know what they want from you. Deliver it. That's your value add.
Wonderful. I think nicely highlighted of wherever we fit in as stakeholders. We have to get valued by them. So it is value in their eyes.
Value is in their eyes. I cannot say I'm very valued. I'm amazing. They have to feel that. And then you will feel it. If they feel it, you will feel it too.
Right.
Yeah, people value me.
Yeah, it becomes rewarding when you see that, spark in their eyes that, yeah, they got it.
Yes.
Maybe if you are a consultant and somebody gets the benefit out of saving some cost, and they
Yes.
feel that. Yeah, wonderful.
Absolutely. Like optimization, like you work on some optimization projects, right? Now the real, the thing is you actually achieved optimization.
True.
That is your value add. That's what you cannot say, yeah, I spent so many man days, you paid me, I worked so hard. Sure, but did it achieve the optimization? I think the results is also what matters in the eye of the stakeholder again. They saw value in that optimization, right?
Superb. Moving to the current context, I think in the pandemic there had been good amount of challenges in quote unquote words, but so always intrigued by how do you look at challenge as a word? Do you have that in your dictionary, or how do you define it?
So I prefer to call everything as an opportunity.
Right.
Yeah, and I think opportunities are presented by events that keep happening around us, in our control, not in our control. And actually, I don't refer to the pandemic or COVID really in my conversations most of the times at all. There are always disruptions, major disruptions, smaller disruptions that keep happening, and leaders have to be prepared for those at a mindset level. What an individual disruption leads to and consequences, you have to deal with them when the disruption is there. If you can forecast it, well and good. If you cannot forecast it, like this one, I don't think anybody in the world forecasted the magnitude of this disruption.
So
then you have to unfold your response as things go on in an agile way. Say agility is a critical leadership attribute to handle disruptions and to handle uncertainty. And I don't think this is a one-time thing. Leaders can, I am wearing an agility cap now, and oh, pandemic is gone, I remove the cap now, I become again agile and complacent. Is not an on thing. That's not on. Leaders need to be agile all the time, and challenges, as you mentioned, or disruptions, challenges will always come. There can be economic disruptions, there can be political disruptions, geographical disruptions, climatic disruptions, within your organization disruptions. I mean, and you cannot say, disruptions won't be there. So I think it's a perpetual state. One has to be comfortable with. And if leaders get agitated, what will others do? And so I think one thing I would say is agility and confidence that you will prevail, and you will do what you can do. And one should be comfortable. I did what I could.
True.
At the end of it, yeah, it worked, it didn't work. One has to evaluate. But I think leaders, pandemic, no pandemic, it doesn't matter. It's one more disruption that came our way. We learned a lot. Some good things happened. For example, in Pragati Leadership, we always say, if this disruption had not happened, we wouldn't have learned the virtual platform so rapidly.
All right.
In a month, like March 24th, it happened. By end of April, all our facilitators were fully onto virtual platform, ready for facilitation. Yeah. And this urgency wouldn't have come if this disruption had not happened. It would have taken us years because our business would go on, no? Now this forced us, if you want to survive, you have no choice but to deliver on virtual platform. When the survival was at stake, we had to do very rapid learning, and there was no choice, and we learned. So I would say this wouldn't have happened in maybe 2-3 more years. It happened in a month.
Right.
So we were competent but complacent about moving to virtual.
I think, I believe when we get pushed to the wall, and it happened, and it is when you don't have any other choice. I think that's where the need gets converted into new avenues, and this is definitely digital platforms is amazing avenue.
Yeah, and when you are forced to the wall, one way is get frustrated, get complete fear rule over you, and get destroyed in the process, or you say be resilient and say what can I do here and how do I rebound and how do I first how do I survive, and then once survived, how do I thrive? I think we have survived now. Many of the companies, some were thriving even in pandemic, but we were surviving. And now time is back to thrive. Now, how do we thrive? But if you don't survive, how do you thrive? I think there with confidence, you have to survive first and then thrive.
It's where if you just look back for types of organizations, the IT industry or digital industry got the highest of positivity. And
Yes.
though there was a good amount of scare in the mind when they were also trying to go online, offline, remote working, these dimensions were also not that way articulated in the form of security from the customer point of view. But now, if you look back, they are the ones who are showing those cost reductions directly adding to their bottom line, the profitability.
Very much, very much. And all these companies have, most of the companies have reported better results.
Better results,
in that sector, which, and see, in a way, they were already used to distributed teams working. In terms of, if you see the readiness and the nature of business you are in, they were already better, suited to adopt this very rapidly on a larger scale. And what also changes the customer acceptability of these things. Earlier customers also sometimes were reluctant. Even in my case, for example, if you like to look at Pragati Leadership, for example, if earlier, if I would say we will deliver all coaching on virtual platform, customers would prefer if people came face to face and delivered the coaching in person. All right. Though we would say, yeah, sure, even virtual is equally effective, and there is no loss there, really, virtual is, and it gives you great flexibility. Scheduling is easy, time is easy, no travel hassles, it's more efficient. Many people did not buy it. Now people are buying it, because situation has forced it. It's interesting, how people also adjust. And now it's easy to sell virtual. Nobody has any problem with virtual platform now. So I think some great things have happened in this disruption. Some terrible things have also happened to people. But to see what you can do, you can do.
So having been there, talking to various leaders, engaging with them in maybe last whatever 4, 5, 10 years. Do you see any kind of a trait coming out which actually evolves as a mandatory or required, or something that one should pursue to reflect, if not challenging situation, but any uh, disruption that is likely to come? So, do you see that kind of a trend happening?
Yes, and I think probably leaders already had it and got applied more strongly in these disruptions. So for example, positivity. You know, uh, you have to have a positive mindset to work in disruptions.
Mm.
Okay? There is no question about it. Other is you have to have confidence that yeah, we will get over it. You have to have perseverance. You have to have resilience. You have to have agility. You have to have ability to innovate and say, yeah, what more can we do? What new things can we do?
Mm.
And so, the positivity, the can-do mindset, resilience that is there, and innovation that is there. All these attributes, I think, are elements of leadership anyway. Now they get applied more when times are not, good. In good times, it's easy, things are rolling. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, customers coming to you and asking for, your products. Yeah. You don't have to do much. You have to just produce products well. Yeah. Quality products. But when there is no market, that's when things get tested. Like now, how do I create new market? How do customers, buy when there is no demand? How do I generate demand? I think that's when leaders get tested with positivity, innovation, creativity, and resilience, I would say.
Wonderful. Nicely brought out as characteristic and attributes of leaders to be even more successful. I would call it as something must to have, and they will actually shine more and get
Yeah,
polished more in this
it's in testing times.
times when it is becoming more daunting and more asking from you as a leader.
Absolutely.
Looking at the aspect of there had been a talk about cash flow issues, money not flowing.
Yes.
So do you think, and another dimension that I'll bring out maybe as a thought thought flow
Okay.
as a concept, similar to cash flow, thought flow, which actually matters at the top, at the leadership, where one has to have that thought leadership, and one has to lead with the kind of examples that one sets.
Yeah.
So do you think which is a more severe problem, a cash flow or a thought flow?
So normally, when people pose or questions to me, I prefer to talk about a and mindset rather than a or mindset.
Okay. Hmm.
Because many times or is a trap you get into. You know,
Hmm.
do you think A is better or B is better? That means I have to choose now. You put me in a trap, yeah. So I would say this is good about A and this is good about B, rather than saying A or B. So
True.
for example, cash flow. Is it a problem, a severe problem in these times? Yes, very much. Don't have enough cash to run a company, you become bankrupt, right? You can't run a company. So it's critical. Is thought flow important? Yes, it is. Because if new thoughts are not coming, how will you respond to new situations? So you need to manage cash flow very well, be very frugal.
Mm.
Uh, there is a discipline called essentialism. I don't know whether you are.
Oh,
So essentialism talks about do only those things which are essential.
superb.
Cut everything out. All right, which is similar principle to lean.
Lean. Yes.
Very similar. It's cut the waste.
Yes. Yeah.
Essentialism brings it out. Not essential in your business, cut it out for now, because that cuts your cost structures, and your cash flow situation has to improve. At the same time, you have to work on better receivables follow up and strong improvements on the cash inflow, and how do I grow my business. So thought flow in is required to manage cash flow, inflow, outflow, new business flow. So I think the thought flow leads to better cash flow, I would say. So, so I would not get into the trap of this or that.
Yeah. So
I think both are very important for companies to.
I think it was definitely Putting trying to put an interesting question, but
No,
let's
it's a
have a
very
try.
good question.
In the sense, as you rightly pointed out, it's sides of the same coin, right? You look at cash flow as one dimension where your business operations are running, while thought flow is where the leadership is looking at the front, being open,
Yes.
being
Yes.
accepting, being
And I
innovative.
think thought flow is the mother of all other flows, you know. Without thought flow, things will not run in anything. You need to have very thoughtful things happening in every dimension of the business.
Right? I mean, if at all it gets blocked at the thought process level, then everything blocks. It's like,
Yeah, yeah, then you're challenged. So because one of the things is important is challenge assumptions. You know, like especially when things are running good, you don't question many assumptions with which you run. You know, so you have to ask. Uh, so this is the way we have been doing for last 10 years, and it is fine. Yeah, why are we doing it? If you ask why, many times people don't know why we are doing this. You know, a particular step in a process, a particular approval, a particular thing you do. This is what we have been doing. Sure. What if we don't do it now? What will happen? How it will impact your business? If you say, yeah, nothing much will happen. Yeah, get rid of it. You know, you'll be surprised what you discover in tough times if you really challenge your assumptions of status quo. And
mm,
it's extremely important to challenge the status quo. Without that, and when things are going good, sometimes you don't challenge them, because yeah, it's going good.
it's happening.
So, but I think leaders need to look at things and challenge status quo even when things are good, not just when things are bad. And that way, you do continuous improvement even in good times.
Mm,
You know, I think one of the things I heard in one of the talks is Indian Army. So let me try and see if I recollect his statement. You sweat in peace so that you don't bleed in wartime.
क्या बोल रहे हैं?
Okay,
Wow.
so you don't relax in peace. You sweat in peace so that you don't bleed when there is a war. Now
That's
that's an amazing statement, no? So
I would
you're
say, yeah, yeah. I think whatever I've seen you had been following this principle yourself, where even the example of you being pretty comfortable in the corporate job with a cushy kind of environment and well set to lead from the front, but you chose. So it is matter of a choice that we make,
right. Yeah, yeah.
right?
I think
Another
that.
dimension that always gets talked about is both aspect of delegation and succession planning. And
Yes.
when we are at the top, we say that we are lonely. It's lonely at the top.
Mhm.
Either we create those walls and being alone, and then we kind of fear somebody else to know what we are doing, and then eventually educating them to be our successors. So
Right.
how do you look at this jinx? It's a complex phenomenon, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But I think I would say ability to create your successors has to be one of the key things a leader must be able to do at all levels, not just the top level. And the reason is that makes actually your organization scalable. Right? So if for example, let's say I'm the CEO of a company and I have say 8 direct reports, and actually all of them are ready to take my role in terms of their competence, but they don't have an opportunity because I have not left. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that means I have ability to create 8 companies,
Wow,
right? So if I set up a company now in some other geography, I have a ready CEO. So
true.
8 CEOs in the company ready to scale the company up.
Mm,
I have built my succession plan. I am also building the scalability of the company, right?
mm,
So I think critical competency of a leader to be able to build your next level as your successors. And also, if I leave, yeah, somebody is ready to take on. And I think companies, for example, I always mention TCS as a company, and I have soft corner because that was my first company where I learned.
mm,
See their succession planning, right, as one of the examples. Like when I was there, Mr. Kohli was there. After Mr. Kohli, there was Mr. Ramdurai who took over. Mr. Ramdurai, there was N. Chandra. After N. Chandra, now there is Rajesh Gopinath. And has TCS performance reduced or gone up?
it's
And
always
it has
not.
always gone up. And is it because the next CEO was more,
Efficient and able.
efficient, or is it because the company was in the growth path as a company? And and it's not one leader; it is hundreds of leaders within the company who make the company grow, right? That
Mm-hmm.
means succession planning is working well there, right?
Mm.
So I would say leaders should not be afraid of becoming redundant or being threatened by next level being, very competent. They should be very proud of that, and and that's a great sign of a leader. And when I was there, for example, with Mr. Kohli, all his next level was ready as CEOs, yeah, and Mr. Ramdev was the one who was chosen to be the CEO, which is fine. But the others became CEOs of other companies when they left TCS. Yeah? So that's an amazing example of being able to do succession planning.
Excellent, excellent. Now, a little bit circling back and switching the tracks. I have seen you, great sports person. Exercise, health, great focus on that. Do you see, and maybe playing something as badminton for last 20 plus years? So, do you see that as a very important tenet of being fit in the mind and physically also? That reflects.
I think it's a critical component. Like, imagine a leader who is, suffering all the time and is not energetic in body. Yeah? And again, it is not this or that; it is both. I
Mhm,
think leaders have to be energetic and fit in body and mind both. You need a strong leader with a strong body and a strong mind. Uh,
mhm,
it's not this or that; it's both. And at least you should see a leader taking efforts to keep oneself fit to the extent possible. So whatever hardware we have inherited, we have no choice. But what we do with the inherited hardware is our choice. Yeah. So if I have a hardware malfunction which is genetic, I can't do anything about it. Yeah, I have to live with it. But am I creating it because of my habits? Is my choice. Right. So what we call in Pragati leadership also, for example, we call it hour of power. Hour of power. I think every person, hour of power, every person must invest at least 1 hour of power for physical well-being every day without fail till you die. Is a strong belief I carry.
oh,
That 1 hour of power has to happen every day without fail. It's like eating food. And if you do that, it gives you rewards. So this is not like a magic one bullet you take once in 1 year. It has to be a routine habit of an hour of power, and I strongly believe in that.
excellent, excellent. Switching back to aspect that what keeps you going every day morning. I've seen you getting up maybe 5:30, 6 o'clock,
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock, right? So, what is that motivates you, or is there any role model for you to follow, or how do you manage energies?
So I don't know how do I manage one, but what works for me, I can share with you.
Mm-hmm.
I think what works for me is probably living life every day,
Mm-hmm.
and enjoying the journey. So, see, I have no intention to be miserable in life by choice.
Absolutely.
And
Mm.
if I have no intention to be miserable, I need to be joyful as a practice. So, and I'm responsible and accountable for my own joy, and take accountability for my joy rather than leaving that accountability to the environment. Like that person made me miserable,
Mm.
situation made me miserable. That is passing blame to the environment or other. I take accountability for my joy. If I decide to be joyful and energetic, no one can stop me.
Wonderful.
And so I think my source of energy is that belief that I'm in charge of my joy and my energy, and I have no intention to be miserable in this life till I'm alive. Yeah, out of my choice that here I want to be miserable. Let me wake up miserable. Is not a choice I would like to make. So I have made a choice to be happy.
Wonderful.
And, I wake up like that.
That reflects in the positivity. Whatever interactions that I've seen, I've never seen you dejected or frustrated or reacting in a, negative way. It's wonderful, because
Thank you.
it's a blessing. Wonderful. Now, looking at the aspect of, uh, you know, m- uh, motivation part. So do you see anybody as a leader who has influenced your thoughts, or somebody that you've read about, or somebody in the world, in a political space, or on a corporate space, that you feel that you tend to derive certain aspects from? That need not be one, or you might not name it also, but are there certain kind of thought leaders that you've
I would say several. I mean, I think we run out of time if I have to mention all of them. So, in
yeah.
my personal experience also, as well as, people I have not met, but I have seen what they have done in the world. So, in my personal life, of course, Mr. Kohli, I think I would say I've been inspired by how he built the company in his own style. So, the leaders have different styles, but he built the company, he built the software industry in India also, I would say great visionary. So what I admire about him is he was a visionary. Yeah, he kind
Mhm.
of knew where to take
Exactly.
the company, how to grow the business, where will it come from, how to scale up. I think he scaled up. The visionary part was great with Mr. Kohli.
Mhm.
I think my other boss was LC Singh. I think he is very creative. I learned a lot of creativity, product ideas, marketing, again, how to grow business, how to think customer centricity. Customer centricity is what I would have learned, I would admire.
Mhm.
I have met another leader, Andy Digelman, in my SaaS days.
Mhm.
Amazing level of, so he's like a global leader.
Oh, okay.
Say I'm a global leader. Many times you are a country in heart, but you call yourself global. I think he truly personified. If I'm in China, I make efforts to be in China and behave,
True. True.
which is suitable there. In India, whether I'm in Europe. So I learned how to be a global leader from him. Outside of my career, I would say, Nelson Mandela. Uh, if anybody wants to talk about positivity and resilience, I don't think there is anybody uh, being in prison for 25 plus years, staying positive, coming out and then
Yeah.
running the country. And then if anybody talks about my misfortune about something in the comparison to being in prison for 25 years plus years, I mean, you can't have a better example of resilience, positivity, and leadership than Mandela. And also, he had that philosophy of leading from behind. So leadership is leading from the front and leading from behind. I learned that from that example. When things are good, you lead from behind. When things are bad, you lead from the front.
Wow. That's nice.
So otherwise, say leader is always in the front. No, leader is not always in the front. When things are good, you can be in the back, take a back seat.
Mhm.
Is a possibility. So I think there are abundant examples of leadership in politics, in corporate space, in social space, and I mean, there are several I would draw from.
Wonderful, wonderful. Uh, Another dimension I would like to check is, looking back to this large spectrum of experience, and I would say experiments that you've done with yourselves. Do you see there is any turning point which has enlightened you that, okay, this is something?
Actually, I think every change has been a turning point and a learning. But I think the most profound effect on my life is when I joined TCS. I would say
Okay.
that's been the most profound turning point in my life, because that changed my career. No, because I had done my postgraduate in physics, so my normal career path would have been be a lecturer, and nothing wrong with that path. But when I joined TCS, it completely changed my, I think, my corporate career path. That is, I would say, the most significant turning point. Everything else has been a turning point, in
But
the,
prominently, right,
but
right.
prominently joining TCS, I think, was my turning point.
Good, good. Coming to a kind of logical conclusion, but now, what do you aspire? What do you want to be? What do you want to achieve? Is there anything that, any stone to be turned, something that?
So, as far as my bucket list is concerned, I'm done. So now whatever I do is bonus in this life, right? What I want to focus on now is specializing in one or two areas of knowledge. And so from April for next now, maybe 3 to 5 years, if I'm alive, I would like to focus on going into depth of 2 or 3 topics, maybe just 2, and probably strategic thinking, decision making are the 2 topics where I plan to go to the depth of it. Now, I understand these topics. Yes, I do. Can I do more? Of course, I can. There's abundant knowledge that I don't have in these areas. So my goal now for the next few years is to pursue depth of knowledge in 2 or 3 chosen areas. 2 are known, 1 or 2 are known, and I will see if I can discover 1 more, but not more than 2 or 3 areas, but really go into depth of knowledge and specialize in those 2 or 3 areas.
All right, wonderful. I think that's great interaction, Vibhas. Thanks a million to spare this time and spare this insights about the whole
Thanks.
journey and the experiences.
Thanks a lot, Shrish, and it was very lively and very, very nice conversation to have. Enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Good, good. So all of our best wishes for the positivity, the pragmatic approach, the way that you are always grounded, the zeal that you have about the health, exercise, and joined to the contributions that you want to do by getting to the depth of those topics. We would like to definitely wish you the best, and thanks again for this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.
Thank you.
बिजनेस कोई भी हो, सक्सेस की नींव हम रखते हैं।
बुलंदियों को छूने की आपके अरमानों की उम्मीद जगाती जोत है, हर सपनों का हम स्रोत है।
सही स्ट्रेटेजी, परफेक्ट डिसीजन मेकिंग और बिजनेस ग्रोथ के लिए हम आपके साथ कंधे से कंधा मिलाकर आपकी स्वप्न पूर्ति करते हैं। स्त्रोत कंसल्टेक, सिनर्जाइजिंग ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन।